All right, so we're here at the top of the hour. Welcome everybody. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products with phoenixNAP, and I am joined by Peter Gallagher, Head of Channels for North America at Megaport. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Man, for sure. And then we've got some really cool content today, as well as, so big agenda stuff, right? We're gonna do a little presentation, 20, 30 minutes. Then we're going to jump right over to Melinda and the coffee experience. It's gonna be fantastic. I know some of you guys got some coffee and got the whole kind of kit and everything like that. We had a ton of registration, so we had to cut that off somewhere, but we are gonna do a $100 Amazon gift card as well. So, you know, there's hopefully something to win for everybody. Either way, stay for the coffee experience because she's gonna do all kinds of education. She's gonna make it really engaging, and I'm excited to listen to it myself. And shout out to the Megaport content team for our title of our webinar today, Pour Over Hybrid Cloud, How to Brew the Best Hybrid IT Deployments. And for the purpose of today, we're gonna do some education on hybrid cloud and kind of multi-cloud. And then from a technical perspective, we're gonna go a little bit deeper on the network side of that, just so we can set expectations so that everybody feels like they're learning something in the 30 minutes that we're gonna do education. And so we all know where we're at now, right? I don't know that these numbers were going to be 50% remote nearly, but post-pandemic world that we're living in, you know, working remotely is the thing. And for anyone in the tech community, it's probably like 65, 70%, if not higher. And so, you know, we're in a position where the workload that you're running your critical IT infrastructure on, it's naturally in public cloud, a lot of it was on-prem, and you're having to figure out how you make all this work together, right? And so as we look at the future, and not just from a pNAP perspective or a Megaport perspective, but if you look at IDC and Gartner and all those folks, they're gonna tell you that the notion that the public cloud is an all-in experience where there's nothing but public cloud in our future is just wrong, right? And for some folks, for some companies, that's gonna be the case. For others, people that, you know, just wanna hug every last server, they're still gonna be on-prem 10 years from now, right? The majority of everyone else is gonna live in this kind of hybrid world, and making this work logistically and technologically is gonna be key to all of that. And so when you, I guess the challenge that I have for everyone today is to take a look at their environment and really begin, even if you don't have an initiative that you're working on right now, really begin to focus on what is going to be important for you to maintain and operate, and what is going to be better for you to turn over to a service. Because there is certainly a lot of value to public cloud PaaS services, platform as a service capabilities, but they come at a cost, right? And people really should know kind of what they're paying for. And if you have skill sets and technological capabilities in a certain area, it may not be best to completely just outsource that in the effort of, you know, just going to the cloud, right? And so we're gonna try to make all this work and ensure that when you look at your actual consumers, which for a lot of people on this call, the #1 consumer of their technology is the internal staff of their company, right? And so the workplace, the remote workplace becomes your user. For those of you that are in, you know, that have SaaS businesses or ISVs or whatever you're doing, you know, you have users all over the globe, right? And so this is becoming a big part of that. And we're gonna stay out of kind of like the true edge today, but we all know where it's going, right? It's distributed edge, distributed and consolidated edge capabilities. I think that that's the way of the future. And so when you look at even public cloud, right? When you look at the varying capabilities of the public cloud providers, what's ultimately becoming kind of in vogue to some extent is using multiple public clouds, multiple PaaS services to execute on your capability set that you need as an organization. And so you're going to see some things as we dive into the details around networking, how actually complex this gets, right? Private cloud, public cloud provider 1, public cloud provider 2, SaaS company 3, right? Like it gets really, really crazy. And I don't know, Pete, like, do you guys have any statistics on like number of clouds that people are working with at any one time today?
William, I mean, it's just like you said before, right? It's, first define cloud, right? Because when you talk about, people talk about cloud, they generally are talking about the major CSPs out there, the Amazon, Azure's, GCPs. But the more and more we dig into, large enterprise customers, they're saying numbers to me that are like making me scratch my head. They're saying, 80, 70 different percent, 70 are different cloud providers. And I'm like, well, I'm counting on my fingers going, wait. I'm like, I don't know that many cloud providers.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's, it's private cloud also. It's all the SaaS providers, which, I mean,
Yeah.
God, if I look at what the future is going to bring, it's that marketplace, right? It's that, being able to access those SaaS providers where you need them, when you need them. In addition to, like we've been talking multi-cloud for 5-6 years at least, closer to 10 years. But I mean, the one thing COVID did was took everybody's digital transformation strategy and condensed it down to, hey, you could do this in a month now? Thanks. So, we saw a rapid adoption of all the major CSPs, distribution of workloads. But I think you hit the nail on the head in your opening statement, right? Now everyone's kind of going back and looking at it and saying, this is all here. The remote workforce is here. No matter what that number is, it's going to be a big number. Now we have to optimize, right? And we have to really put things where they make sense and used when they make sense. So I'd agree with everything you said so far,
Absolutely. And, when we look at the I guess not the awareness of hybrid cloud, because we talk to our customers every day and all of them essentially talk about hybrid now. Like it was always this kind of construct of like, oh, maybe we can do this and have some things over here and some things over there. And now it seems like everyone's kind of gravitating towards it. And they have their own ratios of what you want in public cloud and what you want kind of on-prem or in alternative cloud provider. And we're going to talk some about how PNAP is working in that area today. But ultimately, you start to see these common challenges, arise. Latency of my application, replication capabilities, being able to distribute my application in an active fashion to be kind of in multiple places at one time. And then the cost of executing on that, right? Like how do you keep similar or same data in multiple places, transfer all those changes between regions and locations, and do that cost effectively, especially when a lot of folks, and we are trying hard. I know Megaport's trying hard to change this, but a lot of folks still are stuck in this on-prem plus tier 1 carrier, AT&T, Verizon, etc., right? MPLS fabric, public cloud, remote, right? They got their application A in public cloud. They're using everything that they do to transfers over VPN and or directly over the internet, and you're getting just smashed with egress fees, right? And so that becomes a big concern. And so, we're certainly, PNAP and Megaport are partnering together to try to fix that. And we're going to give you some tangible examples of what that looks like as we go forward.
The other bit you meant too, even on, you have latency, obviously it's a performance issue. I mean, and as these data lakes, pools, oceans, whatever you want to call it, grow, the analysis of them becomes more latency sensitive. You talked about the cost aspect of the CSPs, the egress fees, they're real, and they're, I think it's probably one of the largest driving factors in this past 6 months on how you right-sizing your network. The other bit is data sovereignty. As some of our enterprise companies got more and more into regulated industries, HIPAA compliance, SOX compliance, where you can have that data, is going to partially dictate some of your strategy as well on it too. So it's funny. I generally don't talk about hybrid anymore because I think it's just default. Everything is now hybrid, right? So now it's more about, you know, I spend more time talking about optimization on where your applications belong instead of is hybrid right for you? Because if it's not right for you, it's time to kind of join it.
Yeah, I certainly believe that to be the case. It's like hybrid cloud is using cloud now, right? Like it certainly becomes synonymous. And then, so we start to talk about multi-cloud versus hybrid cloud, and what we see in this, multi-cloud space is typically people are starting to talk about public cloud provider to public cloud provider mixed with private cloud. And then in the hybrid, they're talking about kind of just like an A and a B scenario. And B in the public cloud might be multiple regions, but it's one provider predominantly that they're working to integrate with. I don't know honestly if it matters on the two terms and kind of what makes sense, but when you see kind of where, either of those use cases start to arrive at these major problems, right? Like vendor lock, egress fees getting out of control, data locality, needing data at point A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, right? And if you're in Wichita, Kansas, your users are in Wichita, Kansas, there's not a public cloud provider with anything in Wichita, Kansas. And so you end up in these positions where you have to analyze a lot of data locally. You end up having to bring things back on-prem.
Yeah.
And you end up in these kind of repatriation use cases, to lack of a better term. And so when we look at, what it means to try to set yourself up for success in hybrid cloud, we feel like we can categorize it into these 5 major areas, right? And this is a massive oversimplification. There's a lot of work to be done, but for the purposes of PowerPoint and a webinar, you have to kind of make some summarizations, and starting with analyzing what goes where. And I don't know, Pete, like if you guys see a lot of people doing hybrid cloud, it's pretty much your entire customer base to some extent.
Entire customer base now is exactly it, right?
Yeah. So like, what types of things do you see people are saying, you know what, I have to do this in public cloud because I just can't do it on-prem? And what kind of things are you seeing that they're saying, public cloud's great, but like I'm not getting the value that I need out of it if I run this application?
Yeah, I mean, and so, the easy one is large data, analysis, right? I've got this massive database of all my customers and I'm trying to crunch it and come up with analytics. There are some really awesome cloud-based analytics companies out there, but as your data lake grows, come on, it's always gonna be better to house it locally and analyze it locally.
Right.
Now, even in the analyzation locally, there'll be parts that you may spit off into, a Google AI or something like that. You want to take advantage of their deep learning, but you're not pushing the whole data set up there, right? You're picking and choosing which parts you send up for analysis and then bring it all back down into a visualization engine somewhere, right?
Totally, and that's a great example. I see more companies that are looking at machine learning and artificial intelligence using public cloud for training and private cloud and or distributed edge cloud services for inference, right? And when you look at like an activity pipeline of like artificial intelligence pipeline of like how you get from point A to point B, like this much time is spent training models, right? And even if you're doing continuous model integration and training, in terms of the compute power necessary to get your outcome, it's this much time. And now for a lot of folks, for huge kind of data sets, they need capacity to do that training that they just can't replicate. But once it's done, it's this big. Your data set's this big.
That's right.
Right? So yeah, I mean, we certainly see things like Google Bigtable and stuff like that, and the machine learning stuff at Google, huge for our customers. Life changing to some extent for some of our customers.
And growing rapidly, I would say.
Yeah, when we look at security, governance, certainly the public cloud is not the scary place that people thought it was, right? And you can action your security plans in public cloud and on-prem, but you have to find the right tools to do it correctly in both locations. And that is where the new challenge lies. It's not if you can be secure in AWS or Google or Microsoft and on-prem. It's how do you execute on that, right? And so we see a lot of people spend a lot of time.
I mean, there's a whole industries evolving around it now too. I mean, it's how are you secure in the cloud? How are you secure on-prem? How are you secure on the edge? How are you secure with the remote workforce sitting out there? The evolution of the space, and geez, I try and read a lot of it and I can't keep up with it. But I think it's going to be a defining thing in the next year or two of our business, really, on how are you setting up that zero trust capability, right? Across your entire network infrastructure, your entire data set, whatever you want to call it. It's going to be a defining aspect of it.
It's certainly one of those things where zero trust has got a lot of horsepower behind it right now because of remote working.
Yep.
But it dovetails into technologies that have been around for a little while but are under deployed. And I'll use something like, this is just an example, something like VMware NSX. The number of customers that looked at it and said, sounds good, right? But didn't actually do anything with it, didn't deploy it, right? Are now looking at this and saying, okay, well, heck, how do I get, this next generation application? How do I get this next generation application to be secure in a public cloud environment and on-prem? And so, if you're looking at managing all these assets, it's important that we are in a position where you can see all your things, manage all your things, and use automation to make all this whole engine go. And everything we're going to talk about from a deployment perspective, Megaport, PNAP, public cloud, is all automated or can be automated, right? And so, yeah, I think it's really important to kind of understand that. And then choosing those right partners, finding those right partners to make sense for your business is what's going to be your individual game changer for how you get to hybrid cloud or multi-cloud or whatever you call that strategy inside your organization.
Yep, I think that last part you said, it definitely resonates with me and what I'm hearing from our other partners as well, saying, we have so much capability now, we have so much complexity in what's quote unquote hybrid. Managing it and knowing where all those pieces are is the next thing we're looking after, right? It's got to be automated. It's got to be something I can either build myself or buy in and plug in and visualize. Otherwise, I've lost all the benefit by having to have a team of thousands trying to manage it, right? So, I think it's one of the most important things as an industry tries to scale on saying, I want to take advantage of all of this, but I still have to figure out how to manage it, right? So like you said, there's parts of it that are automated now. There's parts that, an enterprise IT organization is going to have to face into on how do they manage it, right? Or, build, buy, or partner, right?
Agreed. And so when we start to look at getting the executing on hybrid cloud, executing on multi-cloud, right? You have to build in resiliency to the communication pathways that you create to make this distributed application set work, right? And so some of the basic concepts to try to understand around high availability and resiliency are kind of as follows. And when you look at what the public cloud expects from you, I don't think people really understand when they start talking about interconnecting with public cloud, even over VPN. Let's take Megaport, let's take Direct Connect or whatever anyone calls it, interconnect at Google. Let's take PNAP out of this equation and just say, what is expected of you to connect to public cloud in any private fashion? The cloud providers expect you to do that yourself, right? Even if you set up a VPN in AWS, it's like, hey, by the way, here's your 2 tunnel endpoints. And most people look at that and they go, okay, well, I can connect from my one VPN concentrator or my one pair of firewalls to this endpoint, but like, how does that help me? I still have Cox, right? I still have Verizon. That's my internet, right? So what do I do, right? And I think that you start to understand some of the limitations of high availability and what exists. And when you look at technologies like Megaport, you quickly learn that building high availability access through disparate regions, right? I'm going to take this private connection from point A to B to C and from point A to D to G, right? But D and C are at the same public cloud. We're going to give some visuals about that later, but it makes it really easy and clickable. Like I connected my port physically with my data center or usually a data center partner. Connected my port in phoenixNAP, and now I'm going to get to, my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 public clouds, SaaS provider, and I'm going to do that in a completely divergent route and for reasonable fees, right? I'm not talking like this is not the craziness that it used to be, right? We're talking about if you only need a little bit of bandwidth and you have the right capability set, on-prem, it could be a couple of $100 per connection, right? Nothing crazy. People are used to paying $3,000 a month for a 1 gig internet connection. So I think all this stuff is real. And then there are still options, right? Megaport's on this call, pNAP's on this call, but like if you want to connect to one public cloud, you can still do that in private fashion, right? Direct connect, interconnect, express route. These are technologies that work. There are good reasons to do them yourself directly for some use cases, but we're going to try to talk about what those are and what those aren't. And I think a lot of people are mistaken about what they think is the right use cases. So Pete, why don't you talk us through this reference architecture a little bit? Get us down and dirty on some of the design options that exist, and then I'll talk about kind of our thoughts on what people should be doing and executing.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So if this was the least spaghetti-ish design for what a HA architecture would be, I could come up with. Like William said, what we really tried to go out and solve for was, how do we enable not only all the CSPs, but your SaaS providers connecting back into data centers, connecting back into branch locations, which I don't even have depicted here, but also give you that multi-cloud, availability, right? One of the most important things, and William mentioned it, was the initial conversation is I'm going to put all this up into the cloud. And I have an IPsec tunnel and I have a VPN tunnel, and I have 2 endpoints. But then you start asking questions around SLAs from those CSPs, and that's where it starts to get interesting, because in order to get the full SLAs, you have to have some level of diversity, geographic, logical, and it kind of goes back into that. Oh God, I got to go out and go procure a third-party local loop or something, and go out and go bring something else in. The nice thing is, as we've gotten to scale, we've kind of made it a little bit easier for our partners. We've said, okay, listen, you can take advantage of all those availability regions in the clouds to get the SLAs you want, and have that HA of, infrastructure plan that you want to give back to your board, and, tell your CISO that we've got all of it compliant, and tell your CIO we got it all lined up. You can do it from a single pane of glass with us. I would also say, in the case of pNAP, they also have the capabilities of direct connect. And William's right. It's my business to sell my service, right? But I'm very cognizant of the fact that, if you have direct connect capability in your 4 walls of your data center where your deployments happens to be sitting, that is a very, very good place to take advantage of that first leg, right? And I don't want to walk through this whole diagram, but I would say, like, in that diagram, right, that you're looking at, on the left-hand side, the lower left-hand side, you have that direct connect right into AWS, right in the pNAP facility. Short, quick, no hops, happy day, right? To get that full SLA though from AWS, you do want to take advantage of a lower cost secondary means of egress into the availability region. Either that availability region, in this, in the diagram, US West 1, or go over to US East 1, go for that full blown, hey, we're going to be okay, guys. We've got geographic, diversity out, and I won't go into the whole Megaport diagram, but, all of our links, all of our backbone fiber, it's all, we designed this stuff, all geographic diverse coming out of every POP, multiple, at least 2 routes, in many cases 4 routes coming out of buildings. But the nice thing is you can kind of mix and match. I got direct, I can take advantage of Megaport here. It's not break the bank type of money either, like you said. You're not going out for a 3-year contract, signing a $3,000 a month bill for it. But the ability to get creative on the flexibility as well too, saying, all right, I have some applications sitting in AWS, I have some S3 containers up here. I want to take advantage of O365 from Azure. I want to, I have a bunch of users sitting in, in East Coast Azure, whatever availability region it is. What I'd love to start doing is migrating some data between AWS and Azure. And you can definitely bring it back into your infrastructure, right? If you've got compute that has to be there, that's the right thing to do. But if you don't, then you can just take advantage of a low latency hookup from like a cloud router type setup, right? So you don't have to deploy that capital. You can just spin up a cloud router, put VXCs in AWS and Azure, and the 2 units will talk to each other, right? And you can just keep on. Yep.
Yeah, I think that this actually is a really good thought process for someone. This diagram is a very like executable idea here, where if you're in Phoenix, if you're in our Ashburn facility, maybe even as a dual vendor strategy completely, you do one of your legs to AWS is direct connect, right? Yep. And then your other leg is Megaport. And that is real if you have a facility that has Amazon sitting inside of it or Google sitting inside of it, right? But if you don't, you can still achieve that level of resiliency with a provider like Megaport, and it's diverse, very diverse. So I think that that's also something to keep in mind. And then so I want to talk quickly about one of the hardest thing that we see people trying to solve with direct connect or express route, etc., is the need to configure complex BGP, right? Have a router that can speak BGP and then configure those connections correctly, right? It can be tough to execute on for a lot of people. And so our customers love the Megaport MCR because the Megaport Cloud Router, because it gives you that. It gives you a BGP talker that you don't have to manage. You can point, click, 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 get a gateway, point your traffic at the gateway, done, right? It's simple, and I think that, especially in environments like our bare metal cloud environment, where you can't easily put a physical router, right? It's a cloud infrastructure service. This gives you a great option to be like, I want to configure BGP on a Linux system or a Windows system. I want to use something that's hardened and specialized and ready and diverse from the infrastructure. Customers can spin up MCRs on demand, connect to AWS, connect to Google, connect to Microsoft, all from one virtual router, from one connection. And in our facilities, we've already pre-plumbed that connection for you. So for a lot of folks, if you're in our facilities in Singapore, in Phoenix, in Amsterdam, or Ashburn, you have ports that we basically work with Megaport to make ports available so that you can use them in a shared fashion. If you have a lot of transfer that you want to do, big transfer, 10 gig or whatever, we can facilitate you getting direct ports with the Megaport team. And if you're in a data center, if you're a customer of ours, but you're in a data center that we're not at, you have other properties and facilities, we can help you obtain those Megaport physical ports so that you can get up and rolling. And now I think recently, it's not mentioned here, but you have some integrations. Pete, if you want to cover them real quick on the MVE and those technologies.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would mention, and I'm remiss if I didn't say it in the beginning, for those of you who don't know me, our whole network is pre-built. So to William's point, if you need to consume services from us, it's point and click and it's spun up, right? The network is there, it's already ready to be used. So you're deploying in 60 seconds, 2 minutes for whatever you need. You're not waiting the you know, the 90 days waiting for, you know, local access to be delivered. The moving point on the last bit on the integration, the last thing we've spent the past, you know, 18 months really on is looking at the benefit of SD-WAN. And, you know, there's all those data points out there. You know, the 451 research guys are saying, you know, 84% of all enterprises consuming or in the immediate plans to consume, you know, an SD-WAN type architecture for the branch offices, right? You know, what we looked at was, well, how do we help those customers well too? So again, large network already deployed. We realized we could easily convert some of our stuff into transit gateways so that customers could pick up those VPN tunnels coming from branch offices, hit our transit gateways, get back onto a direct connect type setting to the CSPs, or route back to a data center, back onto a layer 2 network that's secure, right? Save the egress fees, you know, simplified architecture, and get your applications going in a, you know, a predictable latency manner, right? I know we have so much more to cover, so William, I'll hand back to you. Go. Let's hear more about the bare metal cloud features.
No problem. Yeah. So we're super excited about our new flagship product that we launched about a year ago now. Bare metal cloud is changing the game for people that want to consume infrastructure in the cloud but don't want any of the lock, right? They want to get out of the hardware business, they want to get out of the data center business, but they still want to be in the hypervisor, VM management, Kubernetes management business, right? They want a private cloud. They just don't want to go to HPE and wait, probably like at least 12 weeks right now for servers to arrive at your place, right? You don't want to wait for that time. You don't want to have to rack and stack them. You can get them instantly. Latest generation of everything, single socket systems, dual socket systems. You know, I think we were joking around the other day with the guys at Intel. I'm pretty sure that, like, from a metal perspective, if you want to do like VMware, you want to do anything with a physical system, we're probably the only CSP in the world that has the 3rd generation Xeon scalable systems right to deploy right now. And it's easy to connect that infrastructure with the public cloud. So if you want to build that private cloud of the future, we can help you do that and connect it to the public cloud so that you can get the hybrid cloud that we've been talking about today. Do it in Phoenix, do it in Ashburn, Singapore, Chicago, Seattle, Amsterdam, working on Austin, working on Frankfurt, working on, you know, just a ton of different regions to be able to deploy that metal as a service instantaneously. Pay by the hour if you want, right? Which is a crazy concept for actual access to metal. And there's the slide coming up here. I had all my locations on it. So we're building out these locations as fast as we can to support the bare metal cloud product. A lot of them have been around for a really long time. And so, you know, the cool thing that I would mention as it pertains to this specific presentation is Megaport's in pretty much every one of those facilities. I'm pretty sure you're in every one of those facilities. So, you know, and if you're not, you're connected to a facility that's connected to that facility. And I think that that makes it easy to work with PNAP and Megaport and the public cloud all at the same time, and really get to that hybrid future that you were hoping to get to. Okay, so I'm going to launch the poll for our marketing team, and then we are going to get directly into the coffee experience. I will do the raffle first, so we're going to go ahead and do the raffle for everybody, so that the people that we're hoping to get the money can get the money. And I do encourage, even if you didn't get the coffee kit, stay for the presentation. And listen to what Melinda has to say about coffee. So we're going to keep that up there for just a couple of more seconds here. Get everybody to click the button. And believe me, if you say no, we will not contact you. If you say yes, only the person that you say yes for is going to contact you. So we'll try to keep the spam to a minimum, right? In terms of, you know, hopefully everybody learned a lot anyway. If you have any questions about anything we talked about, reach out, right? We're both super open companies. ready to educate, ready to help people through some of these challenges. And all right, I'm gonna go ahead and close down the poll and do the raffle. All right, here we go.
William, I was just gonna say, just to be clear, I can't go wait outside their house, right?
You cannot, unfortunately. You cannot. It is what it is. What are you gonna do, right?
I want to talk about cloud more. You know, it's just fun.
Yeah. Okay. So raffle time, $100 gift card goes to Mr. Joshua Goldsmith. So Joshua, we are going to contact you. Make sure you get a link so you're not going to get a physical card because no one does that anymore. You're going to get a link. You're going to sign on Amazon. It's going to automatically transfer that $100 into your account. You're going to be golden, right? So it'll be the easiest thing you ever did. And with that, I am so excited to introduce Melinda. She is going to be taking you through the coffee tasting experience. I'm going to sit here and listen and learn and really try to enjoy that. And take it away, Melinda.
Thank you so much, Will. I appreciate that. A great introduction. And welcome everybody. And I hope that you can all hear me okay. How's the sound? Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you again. I want to take a moment just to say thanks to Megaport and phoenixNAP for having me and allowing me to do this coffee tasting experience with you all. I am Melinda and I'm the owner of Bean Hoppers Coffee. And today I'm going to be walking you through a simple method to identify flavor and introduce you to basic terms when referring to flavor, taste, and experience in coffee. My goal is to help you brew better coffee at home and also to learn how to describe flavors that are found in coffee. It'll not only help you describe flavors that are found in coffee, but also things like wine and tea and spirits. It's all interconnected, right? We're going to be brewing coffee together, and I'm going to be using my very favorite brewing method and telling you a little bit about the pour-over brewer. And I'm also going to give you tips and tricks to help you brew better coffee using whatever brewing device you prefer to use at home. So it might be a good time to go ahead and check your checklist and make sure you have all of the items that are on your checklist to brew a great cup of coffee today. And feel free to ask questions in the chat box. I won't be monitoring the chat box. I have a helper for that. We have Jason on the line. He's going to help answer your questions in the chat box. So feel free to speak up. And if I can't get to your questions, or if you have a question that he can't answer, he will try to interrupt me at an opportune time to get your questions answered. Can you say hi, Jason? Oh, he might be having trouble finding the mute button. Well, we'll get to him.
Hello, everyone.
There you go. Welcome, Jason. Thank you so much. I am the owner of Bean Hoppers Coffee. Like I said, Bean Hoppers is a small business. We're a hot air roaster located out of Oregon. And what that means is the hot air roasting process, it constantly moves the beans in the chamber so they never touch the heating element. Therefore, they never have a chance to burn on the heating element. So as a result, you have less smoke, less bitterness, a much cleaner cup of coffee. So you never get that burnt flavor in your coffee. So that's why we love the hot air roasting method. We use only 100% high-grown Arabica coffee. So this specialty grade of coffee is only used by specialty roasters throughout the world. We buy a top 5% of the crops from around the world, small farms, large farms, etc. So you're getting the best of the best today. So flavor, right? We're here to talk about flavor. Identifying flavor is really a matter of connecting the experience you're having in your cup with a past memory. So it's about the memory recall. But I like to say the first thing that pops into my mind because it's usually the most accurate. And it can be anything. Flavor is very subjective. So you never have a wrong answer, right? So the skill really comes from developing that memory recall. The more you do it, the better you become. However, the biggest challenge when you're trying to identify a flavor is that there's a million words to choose from. Point in case, if you pull out your little scary looking flavor chart that I sent you in your kit, it's very intimidating. How are you going to choose from all those things? So what I want you to do today is I want you to set this aside. We are not going to use this because it is very intimidating. We're going to make it basic, or much more basic. Excuse me, that's not a word. We're going to use some basic terms today. So simple psychology. The more choices you're presented with, the least likely you are to make a decision. So if you're given limited choices, it's easier to pick the flavors you're choosing. So we're going to create a very easy scenario that will exercise this memory recall by using something that's fresh in your memory to relate to when you're tasting the coffee. The food items that I've asked you to purchase, and they're very optional. If you didn't purchase them, don't worry. You can definitely follow along because all of us have tasted these food items before. So I did give you guys a little piece of chocolate, and you can definitely taste that when we're talking about the different flavors. So these food items aren't necessarily things that pair well with coffee, but they are items, textures, experience, and flavors that are found in coffee. Because of that, you're going to want to cleanse your palate before tasting your coffee, after you've tasted food items, if you're tasting them today. So flavor, if you got a little brochure in your kit that talks about different key terms with coffee tasting, and in the front section it says, what is flavor? Flavor is the general catch-all term to describe the overall impression you get from a coffee, or the flavor you taste in your cup. It includes everything we experience, using terms like aroma, complexity, acidity, richness, balance, and body. Flavors can vary widely from lemon to blueberry to chocolate to pipe tobacco. Plus, everyone registers flavor differently. So if you think you're picking up notes of apricot, you're right. And I'm going to tell you something right now that your significant other is never going to tell you, and you can go tell them I said so. You're right, and you're going to be right today, no matter what it is that you say. So I want to start by talking about acidity. You can refer to your flavors flyer that's in your kit when you're thinking about the different food items. It'll give you some suggested words to use when you're trying to describe the flavor of something that you're already familiar with, but may have never actually thought about how to describe it. So acidity, we're going to start with an orange. If you don't have an orange, I'm sure you've had one before. So when you bite into an orange, what experience do you have in your mouth when you taste that orange? Does it taste like orange? Well, yeah, sure. How do you describe that though? It is acidity. It is bright, it is clean, it is fresh, and it sparkles, right? So acidity in coffee is not necessarily something that might cause acid reflux or upset stomach. Acidity in coffee is a good thing. It actually gives coffee its sparkle. So when someone says, oh, that coffee is quite acidic, well, you need to determine what it is to you as far as what acidity feels like to you, right? So acidity to me might feel a little tangy or maybe even metallic. And whether you like that or not is completely up to you. So next I want to talk about body when you're describing the body of a coffee or any other drink, you know, wine, etc. Think about a banana. When you bite into a banana, yes, it tastes like a banana, but it also, what other experiences do you have with that banana? It is rich and creamy and thick, and so it has a heavy body. Also think about when you're drinking a cup of milk, if you drink milk. Heavier body, which would be like a whole milk, versus light body, which would be skim milk. So when you're asking what's the body of this coffee, is it heavy or light? Think about those terms when you're thinking about that. I encourage you to read through the different items on your flavor sheet and see if you identify with descriptions for those items as well. And if you purchased any of the other food items, feel free to taste those as well. We're going to brew coffee today. Due to the fact that we only have 30 minutes, we are going to brew just one of the coffees, and the other 2 coffees are yours to keep and try and practice your tasting skills and fill out the tasting card and see what you can identify in those coffees. I've picked 3 vastly different coffees for you. I'm picking the Guatemalan Pure to taste with you today. It's the one that's the most in the middle. So I would love to get your feedback once you've tried the other 2 coffees, because they're so different. And there's also a Guatemalan, a dark Guatemalan. So these are both from the same region in Antigua. So, and one is darkly roasted and one's more medium roasted with different flavor profiles. The Guatemalan Pure coffee is actually an organically grown coffee. It's not certified organic. We like to buy coffee from small independent farmers, and the organic certification is a quite expensive process. So it's grown organically, so we call it pure because we can't call it organic. So if you love this coffee and you end up wanting more, feel free to go to beanhoppers.com and buy more. You get a 15% discount on the website too. So there's 4 key elements when you're thinking about brewing coffee: water, time, grind, and ratio. I've given you a water to coffee ratio in your kit to refer to when you're brewing coffee, but we're going to discuss that a little bit. I love to brew using the Hario V60 pour over, or most pour overs actually, because you can adjust all of these elements to your exact liking to get the extraction level that you prefer. So water, you would want to use filtered water if possible. Water is 98% of the cup. If you have bad water, you have bad coffee. The best temperature to brew coffee at is between 195 and 205. And again, I get to adjust that when I'm doing a pour over, which I absolutely love. Time and grind. So each brewing method requires a different size of coffee grinds because it uses a different amount of time. The quicker the brewing method, the finer the grinds. So think about espresso, for example. When you brew espresso in an espresso machine, you use a super fine grind and it takes 30 seconds. On the other hand, think about a French press. A French press takes 4 minutes and it requires a coarse grind. So, and there's a lot of things in between. The pour over typically takes a medium fine grind, and your drip brewer that most people end up having in their homes takes 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much you're brewing, and it takes a medium grind. The coffee that we're brewing today is the Guatemalan Pure, and they've all been ground medium, so it's for a drip brewer. However, if you're not using a drip brewer today and you're using a different method, I have some alternative options for you. If you're using a French press, I want you to decrease the time to 3 minutes instead of 4 minutes because the coffee's been ground finer and it will take quicker to brew. This coffee will also work great with my pour over, and it will also work great in your Keurig. But when you're using a Keurig today, make sure you choose the smallest cup setting on your Keurig. Because of the water to coffee ratio, this brews perfectly at about 6 to 8 ounces of coffee when you fill that Keurig cup. So water to coffee ratio. Did you know that in the coffee world, only 6 ounces is a cup? So when you're cooking, you got a measuring cup. 1 cup is 8 ounces, but in the coffee world, it's 6 ounces. So let's say you're filling your coffee maker to the 5-cup line. Well, at that 5-cup line, you have 30 ounces, not 40. They try to trick you. So just keep that in mind. So it's always a good idea to measure your water before you put it into your brewer, because that way you get the proper water to coffee ratio every time. After you're used to it and you know how much water that is, then you can use the cups on the lines on your coffee maker. So to create the perfect cup today, for the purposes of the tasting, we're going to use 12 ounces of water. So if you have a measuring cup, measure out 12 ounces of water and put it in your brewer, or 12 ounces in your kettle if you don't have a scale and you're using the pour over method. And then to get the perfect ratio, we're going to use 4 tablespoons of coffee, because the ratio is 2 tablespoons per 6 ounces. We're brewing 12 ounces, so that's 4 tablespoons. If you're using a scale, it's 11 grams for 2 tablespoons. So 22 grams for 2 cups, which is 12 ounces. If you tasted the food items, it's a good idea to go ahead and drink some water and eat a cracker. You can brew any batch size using this little handy card, which I created, and I use it all the time. I have 14 brewing methods, and I actually do them all. So I'm going to go ahead and start my water and get up to temperature while you guys go ahead and start brewing your coffee in your preferred brewing method. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box, and Jason should be able to answer you, but he's more than welcome to unmute and ask me any questions he can't quite answer. And then we're gonna, while you're brewing that coffee, go ahead and gather your tasting card if you received one. I do realize there was a few people that didn't get a tasting card, and I profusely apologize. We actually ran out of stock, but I did give you an alternative. So grab your tasting card, and on that tasting card, you're gonna write the type of coffee, which is Guatemalan pure, and you're gonna write the grinds, which is a medium grinds, and then you're going to use 22 grams or 4 tablespoons of ground coffee to 12 ounces of water. I like to write all these down because the next time I go to brew coffee and it turned out great or it turned out bad, I know the things that I can adjust to make my coffee taste different next time, especially when I'm using the pour over brewer method. Okay, so I'm going to wait till that coffee brews, then that water heats up, and we're going to, on the back of this tasting card, you're going to be able to fill out all the things about the aroma, the flavors, acidity, which we just talked about, and body and the finish. Talking about scoops versus scales. So we have a medium coffee here, and the medium coffee is kind of right in the middle between obviously a light and a dark, right? So when you have a light roasted coffee, it's going to be denser than a dark roasted coffee. The more you roast it, the bigger the coffee bean actually becomes. So when you use scoops, it's going to hold, your scoop is going to hold more light roast than it does dark roast. Well, what happens when you have more coffee in your scoop? Well, you get more caffeine, right? More coffee, more caffeine. The dark roast isn't going to fit in the same scoop. It's going to be less coffee. So in that aspect, light roast has more caffeine when you scoop. But if you're using the scale, it's all the same. 22 grams of light roast and 22 grams of dark roast have the exact same amount of caffeine. So that is the wives' tale that everyone keeps saying, that light roast has more caffeine. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually rinsing my filter in my brewer, because what that does is it gets out the paper flavor that nobody likes to have in their coffee. And then I'm going to set that filter in there properly. It's a little wonky, and that's a technical term, wonky. All right, so I've got my filter seated into the filter basket nice and evenly. Dump out my water. And then I'm going to turn my scale on and grab my timer. So the brewing method is fantastic for so many reasons. You know, like I said, you can adjust all of the elements of the coffee. So I'm going to measure my coffee, and I already have it measured out in here, but I'm just going to show you this is a Hario scoop, and it holds about 11 to 12 grams of coffee. So I'm going to use 2 scoops of that coffee, and I have 22 grams of coffee. And tear my scale. I'm going to grab my timer. The first thing I'm going to do is even out my coffee grounds so that they're all going to be evenly extracted. One of the greatest things about the Hario is the shape of the cone, that it'll evenly distribute the water through the coffee because it all goes into the middle. So, let's see. I'm going to start by blooming my coffee. What that means is it's going to allow the gases to escape while the coffee is brewing. I'm going to bloom that coffee for 30 seconds. I have not hit my timer. I'm going to pour a little bit of water over the coffee bed and wait until my timer hits 30 seconds. And don't think you can see it, but all the bubbles are coming up out of the brewer while that's happening until I get to 30 seconds. And we do have time for any questions while I'm doing this, if there are any going on in the chat that I can't see. I'm going to be brewing this in a circular motion, pouring my water over, and hopefully your brewing is going well too. I'm going to be pouring this in small circular motions. My goal is to pour all my water over the coffee at about 2 to 2.5 minutes. So you want to pour quite slowly when you do this to extract all the flavor from the coffee. And as I pour slowly, I watch my timer and my scale at the same time. It does take a little bit of practice. About halfway through, I take my dripper and I give it a little swirl. What that does is it evens out the coffee bed, and so that it's more evenly extracted as I continue to pour the water over the coffee grounds. So watching my timer, doing my circles. I like to do it in a bit at a time, because if I continue to pour constantly, I always go too fast. So I do a little pulsating. I kind of do a little bit of water and I wait, a little bit of water, and I watch my scale. Now, my coffee chart says that it's 12 ounces to 22 grams of coffee, but sometimes depending on the coffee, I like to go a little bit over that 12, maybe 12.5 ounces of water, but that's just my personal preference. But it's cooking, right? So when you cook, you always adjust the recipes a little bit to your liking. So here I am. I'm at the perfect water temperature, the perfect water ratio to my liking. I'm gonna
Melinda, since I'm here and I can jump in live, I was gonna ask, do you have any recommendations for like cold brew lovers, right? If you're not a hot brewing kind of person, like what does this look like for cold brew?
So there's so many recommendations I can tell you. So like, are you looking for like what kind of coffee to use in a cold brew, or how to brew cold brew? Because I have a class on that.
Can you just take any one of these coffees that they got in their kits and put it in a jar and brew it overnight? Is it that easy?
Technically, you could, absolutely. It is ground a little fine to use for cold brew. So your extraction might end up tasting just a little bit on the harsher side because it's brewed, because it's ground to a medium. And what the best thing to do if you wanted to do that would be to decrease the steeping time. And I would estimate, like normally I go like 14 hours for a very coarse grind. I would actually estimate that this will probably take you 8 to 10 hours.
Got it.
So do it while you're sleeping and do it and try it out.
When you got cold brew.
This Guatemalan Pure makes an amazing cold brew. Amazing.
And do you sell full beans too, or just ground?
Yep. I absolutely sell whole beans. And any grind level. I usually have it ground for these types of things because not everybody has a grinder. I always recommend whole bean, of course. So, and we do a cold brew clinic too. It's all
There you
about
go.
very fun.
So I'll let you get back.
I'm with you, man. The cold brew is where I was at on it too. But when I gotta be honest, I was taking notes. That was so far. I'm like, wow. I'm blown away.
Yeah, I'm learning stuff here. I got to make sure that I got all these in practice ASAP because I'm a rabid coffee fiend. So there we go.
Oh, good. It's a lot of information. Thank you for asking the question though, because yes, cold brew is my jam too. I love it. And you can do anything with it. You can heat it up in the microwave. You can make specialty drinks. If you check out beanoffers.com, you can see all my cold brew recipes, and they're amazing. I make them myself. I create the recipes myself. So I have got a cup of coffee. Do you guys have a cup of coffee already? Did you make your coffee, or did you not make your coffee? So I'm going to start by tasting this Guatemalan Pure. I chose this one to taste with you guys because to me, because it's one of my favorites, it's got the balance, and you can hopefully taste all the different aspects of coffee in this Guatemalan Pure. So we're going to start with the aroma. And you want to just give it a nice smell and then cup your hand around your cup and over your nose and just really give it a good smell. And see if there's anything you can pick up. Anything. Like I said, remember, you're never wrong. You're right no matter what it is. Even if it's a bad word, not a bad word, but a negative word. So you want to circle anything that you think you might smell, and you can write in your own, and then you can score that. Do you love that? Is it just okay? Everybody's palate is different. This happens to be one of my favorites, but I'm not going to judge, right? So, and then you want to move on to the flavors. So before you decide what flavor you taste, smell it a few times, take a sip, take a smell, take a sip, take a smell, just a few times, and consider the things that we just talked about. Think about the acidity. Think about what acidity means, right? Is it have fruit? Can you taste an orange in it? Can you taste a lemon or a grapefruit? Any kind of fruit? If you can't, that's fine. Maybe you taste nuts or chocolate. Those things are amazing too, right? Now, I'm just gonna have to sit here and drink this for a few minutes because I love it so much. On the red words, in the flavor section here, the red words are kind of the higher level words. So even if you just said, oh, I taste fruit, it doesn't matter what fruit you taste, just circle the word fruit, because you might not be able to identify it now. But after you've gone through all these 3 coffees, you're gonna be able to identify something. I know you are. It's not, it's just reflecting back on the experience you had with food items. Score that flavor. Mine's like a 9. I don't give anything a 10, but this is amazing. Score that flavor how you liked it, and then move on to acidity. Now, what do you taste? Do you taste the brightness in this coffee? I personally do. I taste a really nice, soft brightness. It's not a harsh brightness. It's got great balance between the brightness and the body and the flavor. So, you know, the acidity, like it makes the coffee sparkle, because coffee is often dark and deep and complex and kind of actually brooding, right? Well, that acidic balances that out. And so think about that balance between the two. It's like perfect. Body. So think about the banana, whole milk, skim milk, What do you think? Is it medium, light? You get to choose, and you're right, because you're always right. And then score that based on what your preferences are. And then the finish. Finish is what's left on your tongue at the end, after the coffee has left your mouth. What's left on your tongue? Is it dry? Is it lingering? Did it just go away nice and clean and crisp? And what do you like? Do you like that? It's the same thing with wine, right? When you go wine tasting and they go, oh, on the finish, it's quite dry. Well, coffee's the same. So that's, we're just having a cup of coffee together. I love it. So what I would like for you to do is go through the other coffees and compare the 3 coffees, even make them side by side and compare the different coffees, but make sure if you do them side by side, be sure to drink some water in between, clear your palate with a cracker of some sort. Fruit doesn't really taste great when you're tasting it next to the coffee. It changes the flavors too much. But before I pass this back to Will, I wanted to know if we had any questions that I can answer. Okay.
Jason, is there anyone you wanted to jump in on that you thought were good from the ones that were asked kind of privately? We had one that was from one of our presenters. They asked about the pouring from the inside out or outside in and whether or not it made a difference. Jason had a good answer for him, but maybe Melinda, you could share that one with the audience. What your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, I mentioned that there's a lot of debate on that, but ultimately it doesn't really matter.
I'm pretty random. I start on the sides and I move to the middle and then I just kind of go all over, because when I do the little swirly trick, it kind of like evens it all out. So it doesn't, it's like cooking, right? It's an art.
Yeah, I think as long as you get the filter wet, right? I think it should be kind of good to go, right?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is when you have a paper filter, try not to pour on the filter itself. Try to avoid actually touching the filter with the water, because then you're actually getting more of that paper flavor into your cup. So that's my tip. Yeah. Good.
I don't know if there's another one, Jason, that you wanted to throw out there.
Okay. He must have asked for all the questions for me.
He did. He answered a lot of questions, so I was just like, you know, these are great. This has been fantastic, Linda.
He's very quiet in there. But before I pass it back to your final message, I wanted to thank you again so much for having me, and I hope you learned something and really enjoyed your time with me. If any of the participants online right now want to have a coffee tasting for their group, or a pour over coffee tasting where I teach you how to use the pour over in depth, or a cold brew tasting, I am available. Go to the website. I'm happy. And if you loved any of these coffees, make sure you visit beanhoppers.com, use your flavor 15 discount for 15% discount. And I will be also sending out a feedback email. I would love it, love it, love it if you gave me some feedback, even if it's negative, even better actually, because I would love to improve this. And anything I left out, I know it was like drinking from a fire hose. We only had 30 minutes, but we did it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's all a balance, and next time I promise that we will give you more time, because I think a cold brew tasting is in order in my life. So I'm gonna work with the team to make sure that happens. Thank you so much, Melinda, for everything.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
All right,
thank you everyone that joined us today. We had an amazing turnout. Love the assist from my man Peter at Megaport. Thanks, Pete.
Always, William. Always. Thank you, my man.
Awesome. And then please, if you have any questions, reach out. I'm gonna switch over to the Q&A. I think we have. Yeah, reach out. Hit us up on any of our social medias. My email is williamb@phoenixNAP.com. You can email me directly. I'll find the right person for you. we love to answer questions. That's really what it comes down to. We love solving technology problems. We will help you through anything, even if we can't do it for you or have a solution that we have delivered, for you. We'll make it work. So thank you to everyone for taking time out of their day. Stay tuned for the next cool webinar. I'm sure my teams, the Megaport team's got something brewing. There, we got it in there. And we will figure out what that is, and we will be in touch as soon as possible. Have a great day.
Thank you guys so much.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, guys.